To clean interdimensional nests with high reliability, you need at least 1 liter of ammonia, 25% solution. How much ammonia you need depends on the size of your living area. 1 liter would be the minimum. It must be used pure, not diluted. A pump sprayer 5 liter, 2 liter. Chemical protective gloves. A chemical protection suit. Closed plastic safety goggles. Full face respirator mask with ammonia cartridges marked with green color and designated with the letter K. Gloves, suit, and mask are optional, but highly recommended, especially if repeated use is expected to be necessary, what it mostly is. Also, if you buy larger quantities of ammonia, as it is not possible to transfer it from a large canister into a bottle or sprayer without wearing a gas mask, at least protective gloves and safety goggles should be worn when using the pump sprayer. It should be seriously considered to use protective clothing and a mask when spraying, even if one would normally disregard lame safety instructions, because when interacting with dark entities, things often work very differently from normal reality. Some of these entities emit an energy field of strong, pure misfortune, whether naturally dark, spiritually radiating, or technologically generated frequencies, which can affect one when being in their presence. The consequences are spontaneous accidents of the improbable and unexpected kind, and it is best to avoid tripping or falling or unexpected blasts of wind when handling ammonia without protective clothing and face coverings. Application. Take everything you need to leave the home, everything you need out of a chosen room. Remove animals from the homeroom. Cover plants with cloths, remove them from the room. Open the windows at least tilted. Fill the pump sprayer with undiluted ammonia 25%. Pump the sprayer. Spray the ammonia in at least the 4 corners of a room, better also the ceiling, the walls, the floor, the furniture. It's best to treat every room. Spray ammonia into and around the toilets. Primary access and nesting areas. Toilets, basement, attic, room where conspiracy research activism is carried out, sleeping area, kitchen, living room. This is the most optimal order in which to proceed when treating one room at a time. You can treat one room at a time. It is best, though, to do them all at the same time. You should allow up to 12 hours for the ammonia to evaporate. It can also take longer. Possibly stay in a hotel for a few days. Leave the home-treated room mess. Ventilate rooms. Well, run fans, turn on air conditioning. Just because you think you know where a nest is located does not mean that the assumption is correct. The entities are telepathic and create confusion and implant false beliefs to prevent their detection and removal. That's why some work directly around a nest without removing it for years. All rooms should always be treated. Leave nothing to chance. Removing a nest alone is often not enough to solve the whole problem, as affected individuals often have an entity attachment at the same time. This must be removed directly after the nest. How to remove entity attachments is explained in these videos. Extremely effective tool for instant relief from entity-induced terrors. Breakthrough, highly effective dark entity repellent. 10 proven methods to counter psychic attacks, entity attachments, and astral energy vampires. These methods will get rid of an attachment, but consistency in the use of these is absolutely crucial. These entities are resistant parasites specialized in survival. Getting rid of them is very possible, but not easy. Some of the most potent methods: apply freshly made garlic oil to the whole body, including the head, before going to bed. Use a breathing trainer as described in the video. Inhale strongly, blow in strongly, and quickly 20 to 30 times in succession until a tingling sensation runs through your body. Repeat several times a day, every day. Strongly intense stretching targeting the hips, spine, and shoulder area. Hit gymnastics, heavyweight hip thrusts, heavyweight deadlifts, heavyweight pull-ups. Each exercise must be performed with an intensity far beyond the limits of comfort. The attached entity clings tightly and resists being released, which manifests as a pulling, pinching pain in the astral body. One must remain persistent. How do you know if you have an interdimensional nest in your house? Well, are you reading this sentence? If so, the probability is already very high, if not guaranteed. Maybe not, but it's enough of a serious indication that you should use the method to be on the safe side. In this case, there is little to lose and a lot to gain, as the life of someone who has an interdimensional entity nest can change 180 for the better once it is removed. The effect of a nest removal is as if night turns to day in a matter of moments, or as if a horror dark night becomes a pleasant summer night, as nests siphon the spiritual light from an environment and replace it with dense darkness and misery. And since the method really is highly effective, guaranteeing success within minutes of application, you will know with a high degree of certainty afterwards whether you have had a nest or not. And then you will know the difference for good. This is one of the great advantages of heavy, efficient methods when dealing with entities. Because knowing the clear, sharp-edged difference between normal reality and entity-influenced reality gives you a huge advantage when dealing with them. This is because they are highly specialized and capable of blurring the lines, gradually changing states, shifting the Overton window, in addition to consciousness manipulation. Constantly cause micro changes so that you don't notice any change until you find yourself in a completely different reality without even realizing it and without remembering what the old reality was like or that it even existed. They apply this formula not only to society as a whole, but also on an individual basis. As below, so above. As above, so below. Nest can be removed with detergent or disinfectant spray. Moderately strong nest can be removed with very thick clouds of incense, white sage, or frankincense. Strong nests can be removed with ammonia solution with 25% strength, which has proven to be highly effective. This has all been confirmed by practical application in many tests. What is an interdimensional nest? A nest is an energetic structure that acts as interdimensional bridgehead into a person's home, enabling entities to remain present in it and exert permanent influence on the nest environment and on those in it. It is a permanent fortified portal into the dark astral realm or an alien underground basis from where an entity operating in the nest draws supplies in the form of energy, presumably tactical instructions, and other entities come in to replace or take over shifts. They are in principle identical to military bridgeheads, but with interdimensional properties. A military bridgehead is a strategically critical operation during an offensive where a force aims to secure a foothold in enemy territory. The primary goal of a bridgehead is to establish a secure area within enemy territory to facilitate further operations. A nest makes the activities of one or more entities operating from it many times more severe. Their presence becomes more persistent, their attacks stronger, and resistance to their influence more difficult. Without a nest, an entity relies on its own limited energy supply and the energy it can draw from a person, which is not much and not enough to be present for long, with the exception of permanent attachments. If a nest is present, the entity has a third supply line through which it regularly draws more than enough energy to pursue its activities. When there is no nest, the defense against entities is a struggle with a nest. It becomes a fight against a windmill. It turns into a permanent symptom treatment as long as the nest, is not removed. The nest can be very small and in one location only or consist of large energetic infrastructures that infest an entire house. Entities operating out of a nest can attach themselves to a person and follow them. Even if one does not have an entity attached, a nest in a person's primary domicile allows entities to establish a psychic link to the person no matter where the person is located. Hence, a nest is not always merely access to an attic, but to a person's entire reality. Therefore, leaving a nest-infested house for a different location does not necessarily result in full or any relief. As a consequence, one might become convinced that one's entity-induced state of misery would be one's normal state. This is a fallacy actively induced or encouraged by entities, as it gives the entity perfect camouflage and allows it to operate undisturbed under the person's radar. If one moves out of the infested house completely, the nest either runs out of energy or loses its metaphysical permit when others move in. However, there are cases of people moving into haunted houses who have not experienced a haunting where they came from. What the necessary steps are: 1. Removal of the nest. 2. Removal of a possibly attached entity. There are certain conditions that are not necessarily essential, but which increase interdimensional permeability, which at least favors the establishment of a nest. Darkness. Stationary air. Clutter, uncleanliness, dust, filth, mold, rot, feces. The more chaotic, dark, dirty, and undisturbed the place is, the easier it is to set up a nest. This is why attics, basements, toilets, and surrounding areas are the primary locations of nests. Conversely, the establishment of a nest is made significantly more difficult by conditions that are contrary to the nature, the low vibration of dark entities and their energy structures, natural light, fresh air, air ventilation, order, hygiene. The entities operating out of a nest therefore psychically manipulate the person and persons living in the area of the nest in a way that creates the conditions needed for the nest to become permanent and fortified, such as induced procrastination, neglect, forgetfulness, depression, resignation, all those psychological and emotional states that create the conditions needed by the entity. Windows are no longer open for ventilation, rooms are no longer tidy, garbage is no longer emptied, leftover food is no longer disposed of, dishes are no longer washed, toilets are no longer flushed regularly, and so on. Who are these entities? There may be an endless variety, ranging from interdimensional versions of molds that spread to minor dark astral critters that engage in opportunistic soul energy parasitism and whatnot. This article, however, is about dark reptilian, gray crawler, and mantid alien spirit entities that consistently and systematically act with higher strategic goals. They seek to emotionally and psychologically torment, drain energy, and spiritually corrupt to systematically lower the target's vibration in order to ultimately neutralize or possess a threat to their agendas and or use the possessed for their interest disinfo agent. Not just to feed on the emitted dark energy, although that is part of it, namely to drain the life energy to maintain their presence in the realm of the target person and wage an interdimensional war of attrition by rendering a person weak, confused, and unproductive. Activities that impact the known long-term agendas of the alien entities World War III, NWO, crisis actor hoaxes, alien hybrid infiltration, transhumanism will result in a directly correlated response in timing, form, and severity from nesting entities. whether they are all one and the same, with physical aliens being the bio-avatars of dark entities located in underground bases who then astral project themselves into homes while bodies are put into storage or in sensory deprivation tanks, and they work in 4-part shifts on targets to cover 24/7 of their time, or whether they are all interdimensional, whether they are two different classes of entities cooperating with each other in a symbiotic and coordinated relationship, they act as one in service to the satanic alien hierarchy that seeks to establish the NWO. Whether the following are physical or interdimensional is difficult to determine, as some of them are physical at some point, but can act and become interdimensional, astral project, and switch their dimensional state, and also transfer their consciousness between biological avatars. But for the sake of accurate reporting, the physical state of the following entities is mentioned as it was perceived in the respective situations. Physical reptilians and greys located in ultra-sci-fi underground bases do perform procedures in which they implant non-physical reptilian entities into a target person's chakras non-physical aura body, resulting in a reptilian attachment. This proves a direct cooperation between the apparent two classes of entities. These very same non-physical reptilian entities are among the entities that establish nests and houses. The physical reptilians in underground bases get active in the interest of interdimensional reptilians and vice versa. Physical mantid located in ultra-sci-fi underground bases get active when interdimensional, physical, and hybrid reptilian interests are challenged. Interdimensional mantid entities react to activities that run counter to the interests of NWO policies. Reptilians command the actions of interdimensional grace crawlers who set up nests and homes in response to activism against long-term alien agendas. At least in terms of objectives, there is no clear distinction between them, as the actions of one benefit and/or are enforced by the other and vice versa. Where are they from? Dark astral realms and underground bases, while the underground bases function like halfway downward vibrational base camps into dark realms due to all the unspeakable horrors that take place in them. Nest identification, a practical guide. 1. Is there a room in your apartment house where you feel comfortable, where the atmosphere is pleasant, where you can relax, where your thoughts are quiet, where you are focused and your feelings are calm? Where everything in the atmosphere just feels normal and the way it should be? If this is the case, take this room, or rather the atmosphere in it, as a reference. If this is not the case, you can use someone else's apartment house or a hotel room that meets this standard as a reference. Let's call this room 0, the neutral room. 2. With this reference in mind, does the atmosphere in all the other rooms in your home feel the same as room 0? This includes the attic, basement, garage, shed, and barn, etc. A. Is there a room that you do not enter at any time of the day for a reason that you cannot precisely define? B. Can you go into all rooms in the middle of the night with the lights off and alone, without the slightest hesitation, or is there a room you prefer to avoid? C. Is there a room that you could not imagine sleeping in alone after it has been decluttered and tidied? D. I just don't like going in there. I don't like the atmosphere in there. Have you ever said something like this about a room? If you have answered yes to just one of these questions, A, B, C, D, you are absolutely certain to have some form of interdimensional contamination. It's as simple as that. Such contaminations are very common. They only vary in severity. They range from a low level leading to an uncomfortable atmosphere to a severe level leading to outright poltergeist situations and everything in between. Nests are usually somewhere in between, but can escalate into the latter. As for the basement and other dark areas, a somewhat heightened vigilance to enter when it's dark and a certain reluctance to enter because it's dusty or very messy or moldy is normal, but being frightened or hesitant, avoiding or even horrified is not. In society, it is normal for basements and attics to be considered eerie. But it's not normal, it's a normalized paranormal. This means that the paranormal phenomenon of eerie spaces has been recognized as an objective natural reality, as normality. But it is not normal, it is paranormal in every case and at all times. That darkness inevitably and naturally leads to feelings of fear is a widespread and very false misconception. Because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, some experience it, others don't, so it can't be an objective fear factor that triggers an objective emotion. Darkness does not cause fear, nor does the anticipation of what might lurk in the darkness cause fear. Fear is an external interdimensional phenomenon that affects or infects the emotional body. It is not a universal, internal, natural human emotion. Where there is fear, there is interdimensional infestation, be it externally in a room, an entire region, or in one's own mind or emotional body. Children are more sensitive to this, which is why their fear is usually greater. They are not afraid of darkness in general or what might be lurking in it. They are not afraid for lack of knowledge. They have intuitively become aware of an interdimensional infestation. Someone might think I'm afraid to go in there. No, the fear is usually not in you, it's in there. The room is paranormally contaminated, interdimensionally infested. Some just perceive it better than others, which is why they don't feel fear, or rather they say they're not afraid yet still feel fear, but go in anyway to prove themselves. Foresight, caution, vigilance, adrenaline, all of these are justified in a dangerous or potentially dangerous situation. Fear is never justified, never. This also applies to potentially lethal situations and encounters with cryptic horrors, psycho-aliens, and unknown monsters in the basement. Fear has no legitimacy in objective natural reality, ever. Fear is an interdimensional infestation that has infected our realm and is spreading. It is spreading in basements and attics, in minds and hearts. It is an unnatural and external phenomenon that is not part of human nature, not of the body, not of the mind, not of the soul, and one must cleanse oneself of it completely. Fear is the astral version of pathogens, parasites, bacteria, or fungi. And that is exactly how it must be treated until there is nothing left in the mind, emotions, or environment. Certain groups of aliens and entities are extremely highly infected by the fear infestation. Reptilians in particular, and also grace crawlers. The fear of those who encounter them is not due to their malevolent nature, but because they psychically radiate their fear contamination. Though some of them can also emit infrasonic attacks that cause dread, which is a separate phenomenon. There is a saying that a little fear is healthy, but it is not. Just as a few parasites are not healthy. It's not fear that alerts one to a dangerous situation, it's awareness that alerts. Knowledge and intuition and gut feeling. The brain, the heart, and the gut, these are the three centers of insight. Fear is not necessary. It is not necessary, but it is certainly very destructive. Fear makes one freeze in a dangerous situation. What is healthy and natural about not being able to move when a predator is after one, or one needs to escape danger in some other way? It's potentially fatal. It's about fight or flight, not standing around because one's legs are too shaky to move. And both fight and flight work better when one is not weakened by fear. Fear can cause many kinds of sensations: discomfort, hesitation, uneasiness, avoidance, and dread. This is how a form of interdimensional infestation is recognized, which could be a nest. Now it is clear how to recognize and get rid of such a form of infestation.